All right, so welcome back. Hope you all have a nice Shabuot, study some Torah, some mitzvot. And today we're going to move on to the seventh group of mitzvot. We already did the eighth. We're going back now. All right, let's see. Let's see first what this says, and then we'll start to explain a little bit more. Because I extracted some mitzvot here from a different group. I'll explain why soon. המצוות שהקבוצה השביעית כוללת, right, the seventh group of mitzvot, והן דיני הממונות. Is everything to do with דיני ממונות? What's דיני ממונות? Passive monetary issues, right? Disputes between people, and what I put into here was also the financial system of the Torah, which was the mitzvot of Shemita and Yovel. The Rambam actually, when he categorized the mitzvot, he put it in Sefer Ziraim that has to do with things to do with the land, like when you could work the land, what kind of tirumot you have to give, and matanot ani. But I want to discuss it here as part of Dinei Mamonot, because this is really the pillar of the Jewish financial system, as we'll see soon. הן אשר מנינו בחלק מספר משפטים ובחלק מספר קניין. All right, so these are the mitzvot that are included in two different volumes of the Mishneh Torah. One of them is Mishpatim, has to do with legal disputes, and the other one, Kinyan, which has to do with property ownership. Hatam shel kulan galui. And it's very, very apparent, but what's the reasoning behind this category of mitzvot? הן קביעת משפטי צדק בעסקים המתנהלים בהכרח בין בני האדם. Right, and this is to have a just legal system. When coming to dispute, it's the one on the right. When people coming to dispute anything that they have, some sort of business arrangement between them, right? You need to have a court that's able to settle the disputes. ושלא יחרגו בהם משיתוף פעולה המועיל לשני הצדדים. And so that the people are able to cooperate when making business, when making investments. Who is it? Oh, forget it. ושלא יחרגו בהם משיתוף פעולה המועיל לשני הצדדים, כך שלא יכוון אחד מן הצדדים לעסקה למרב את חלקו לחלוטין, והוא שיהיה מרוויח מכל בחינה. Right? And what is the point of all these laws? Is so that when two people come to make some sort of business arrangement, any good business is built on win-win, where both sides are able to get some sort of value out of it, and not one person getting maximum value and the other person basically being trampled. ראשית שלא תהיה הונאה במכר. Right, so first, all the laws that have to do with ona'ah, misleading someone when coming to sell him. It's called ona'at. It could be ona'at ksafim, ona'at devarim. When you tell someone misleading things, or when you sell him a faulty product. אלא הרווחים המקובלים והידועים ונקבעו תנאים שההסכם מתקיים בהם ונאסרה הונאה אפילו בדיבור כידוע. And so too also הונאה even in speech is forbidden. אחר כך ארבעה שומרים, הצדק והיושר בו ברורים, and then we go into the laws of the four shomerim, four types of people, four types of guards, right? You have someone who you just deposit your property with them, you pay them to watch over your stuff. What's the extent of the liability he has over it? Or someone who You say, here, watch my bag for me, please. And he says, okay, no problem. And he's doing it voluntarily. And then it gets stolen from him. Is he liable to pay you for the damages that were caused or not, right? By the way, a lot of these mitzvot are in Perashat Mishpatim, which is the foundation of the covenant that we signed with God. When God said, I'm going to make a covenant with you, I'm going to make you my precious nation, and we said, Kol asher diber Hashem na'aseh, yes, we'll make a covenant with God. And he says, Ze'ele had-divarim, and they gave us aseret had-diberot. And then after the Ten Commandments, he says, Ve'ele ha-mishpatim, right? And these are the laws. First, it goes into Dinei Avadim, then it goes into Arba Shomerim, Arba Avot Nezikin, right? Then it goes into the Moadim. All this is part of the core of the covenant that we contracted with God at Sinai before we received all the 613 mitzvot. These are some of the uh, most most foundational mitzvot of the covenant itself. אחר כך הופלג בחמלה לסכין בשל עוניו. And then, furthermore, he was a mercy to the employee, the person, or the day contractor, right? Because, he's not a big corporation. You have to make sure to pay him right away. למהד לשלם את שכרו, pay him on time, ושלא להונות אותו בשום דבר מן המגיע לו, right? And not to prolong any part of his payment. Make sure he gets everything on due time. כלומר, שיקבל בהתאם לשירות שנתן. Right, he provided a service, you pay for the service right away. ובכלל הרחמים עליו שאין למנוע ממנו ואפילו מהבהמה מלאכול מן המזון ששניהם עובדים בו. And part of this mercy upon the workers is not just the person that's working, but also the animals that you're working with. When you're plowing the field and stuff, where he's working in your fields, that he should be able to also eat casually from the food that he's working with. Meaning, if he's out there picking apples for your orchard, or he should be able to eat some of those apples too. בהתאם לדיני מצווה זו. So these are all as defined by these mitzvot. עוד מדיני ממונות הן הירושות. And this is what we're going to get into a little more deeply today. Further, in the Dinei Mamonot is everything to do with Yerushot. What is Yerushot? Anyone know that word?
Inheritance?
Inheritance. Exactly.
I'm cheating that.
What's that?
I'm cheating. I have the.
Okay. Well, you're watching it. You put it into and you're like following
whole
it.
sheet that I sent the whole PDF into Grok.
Okay.
Reading it in English side by side.
Okay. All right. So Yerushot. By the way, there's two different terms. There's Yerusha and Morasha. Who knows the difference between the two? Many times they're used interchangeably. Yerusha and Morasha. How's it work?
But then I'm gonna lose my progress.
Same storage,
Same
root.
Same root, yeah. It's nuanced. That they both mean inheritance, but they have a nuanced meaning to them.
Maybe the mem, no?
It says Torah sivalanu Moshe Morasha kehilat Yaakov. Right? It says about the Torah. It says in Pirkei Avot. It says if you study Torah, right? Al tachzik tova la'atzmecha. Don't take don't praise yourself too much, right? It says she'ina yerushalach. It is not your inheritance. What does that mean? Why is it so important to study Torah? It says it's not your inheritance, it's not a Yerusha. But then the Pasuk says, Torah sivalanu Moshe morasha kehilat Yaakov. That is the inheritance of the congregation of Yaakov. So the difference between Yerusha and Morasha is Yerusha is an inheritance that you receive, right? it's now completely yours. A morasha would be more like a legacy, meaning it's inherited. You're currently the custodian of it, but it's your responsibility to be able to pass it down. Meaning, so you get this inheritance, you need to take care of it so that the one who gets it later from you is gets something real, and it's not all wasted, it's not all gone. So what does that mean? Ina Yerushalach? Why do you have to study Torah? It's not just so that you know Torah, it's so that you can teach Torah to your sons after. Because the Torah itself is a morasha, it's the legacy of Am Yisrael. It says Eretz Yisrael itself is also, it's a morasha. We have a responsibility to take care of the land so that we have what to pass on to the next generation. Anyway, so we'll get into Dinei Yerushot a little bit. כלומר, שלא ימנע האדם טוב מן הזכאי לו. Part of Dinei Yerushot, by the way, there is no such thing as a person taking his son out of his will because he doesn't like the way his son is behaving. He says, even if his son is an Oved Avodah Zarah, he has no right to, what's the word in English? To
Disavow.
disavow him from his will. It's asur. Because it's not even your sons, it's his sons. Right? So there are certain laws. The Bechor needs to get a double portion. You're not allowed to change that. So whoever is entitled to a certain benefit, right, you're not allowed to take it away from him.
Talking about inheritance.
Yeah, inheritance.
So they're saying it's a given benefit?
A father who's about to pass away, he's not allowed to change, he's not allowed to go against the laws of inheritance to say that I don't want my son to inherit me, or I want my third son to get a double portion instead of the first son. You're not allowed to go against these laws.
Wow. Could the father give no inheritance at all?
What he could do is while he's alive, he can give away presents to whatever he wants. Right? But the Hachamim don't like that.
Oh, inheritance is a structure.
Yes, absolutely. And we're going to see why soon. We have to look at these laws different than we've been looking at them for the past 2,000 years. I'm already hinting to you what's on the board. There's a hint on why you can't change these laws of inheritance. And a person, before he passes away, he shouldn't be stingy with his children and say, well, I have $1 million and only have like 10 days to spend it. I'm gonna, I don't know, take a flight to the moon or something, right? And waste all my money. I better use it up now. He says, no, you have $1 million to pass on to your son. You want to pass it on to your son. You should leave it for he who is most worthy of it, meaning כלומר, הקרוב ביותר מבין הקרובים, right, to the closest among his relatives, based on, there's a structure, right, who gets precedence in the will. נשארו הקרוב אליו ומשפחתו. And we're going to see this we're going to see this whole section, open it up in the Tanakh itself, in the Torah. דבר הזה יתבהר הבן ואחריו האח ואחריו אחי האב, right? So first president is the son or the sons. Among them also the first son gets a double portion. And if he has no sons, then it'll go to the daughter. And if it doesn't have any daughters, it'll go to his siblings, his brothers.
Where does the idea of double portion come from? That's like strict.
Yes.
You think that would
Not only is it strict, but out of all the laws of inheritance, there's a negative mitzvah. It says lo yibaker et ben השנואה האהובה על פני בן השנואה הבכור. Says you're not allowed to transfer the double portion to another son.
But wouldn't you think that would cause, like in modern day, like that would cause crazy issues, like, oh, just because you're my eldest son, I'm gonna give you a double portion.
It could cause, I don't think it could cause issues because it's like, these are the rules of the game for everybody.
Mm.
It's not like I'm preferring one son over another, shiruti, just because I feel like it, because I like this son more than another. You're not allowed to show preference between the sons, but the first son gets a double portion,
Sounds like preference.
whether you like him or not, right?
Yeah.
It's whether the father likes him or not.
Is that followed today?
No, I don't think so. Mishum she'avato kadma today, who enforces inheritance?
Courts?
Yeah, it's the civil courts. If someone writes a will, the civil court will enforce it as he wrote it, whether it goes according to the Torah or not.
Mm. But let's say like there was a very wealthy religious man here in Israel, he passes away. Would he most likely give a double portion to his eldest son? Maybe he had two sons, let's say.
I don't know.
Huh.
I don't know. But we'll see. There's a bigger picture here.
Mm.
And we're going to bring in some other laws that don't seem related to this at all, to this bigger picture. But once we understand the bigger picture, it's all going to make sense, I hope. This is exactly what you asked. He says even if he has a hated first son, he can give a double portion to his preferred second or third son over the first son, which he doesn't like. כי את בן הבכור השנואה יכיר לתת לו פי שניים בכל אשר נמצא לו, כי הוא ראשית עונו, לא משפט הבכורה. התורה הצודקת הזאת, right, this just Torah, דואגת למידה הזאת ומדגישה אותה מאוד. It is very, very strict with this midah of taking care of those who are closer to you, your inner circles and then your outer circles. כוונתי לדאגה לקירובים ולתמיכה בהם, meaning supporting those who are close to you, familial ties first, or those that are in your city. ידועים לך דברי הנביא, ואוכל שאירו אכזרי, someone who takes, leaves his inheritance or disavows a member, one of his sons from their inheritance is called akhzari, cruel. ולשון התורה על הצדקה, and the Torah talks about the tzedakah, פתוח תפתח את ידך לאחיך, לענייך, right? Open your hands in tzedakah to your brothers, to your poor, ולאביוניך בארצך, and to the poor in your land. And we have a halacha that says, עניי ביתך קודמין. You have tzedakah to give, prefer first of all to give it to those in your family. If you have struggling people in your family, first you give it to them. If you don't have struggling people in your family, you give it to, says, עניי עירך קודמין, those in your city. Support them first. I'm reading a book now by Tuvia Tenenbaum. Great book. I was going to show it. Could you show it? He has a book called Catch the Jew, where he's a German Jew, grew up Hasidic. He speaks fluent German, Yiddish, English, Arabic.
Tuvia Tenenbaum.
Already,
he spent some time in the Haredi neighborhood.
Yeah. So he does. So this is a book where he's going around the United States, and he's interviewing people. I really recommend his previous book, Catch the Jew, but then also this one, The Lies They Tell. And he's going around and he goes to these rallies, all these pro-Palestinian rallies. This is time when Obama was president, but this is already like a while ago. All these progressives, all these NGOs that are trying to save people around the world. and then he goes, takes a bus down to a neighborhood down the street, where the slums of the city, where nobody cares about. He says there's so much crime going on. He says everyone's talking about Israel. Everyone's obsessed with Israel and Palestine and what the Israelis are doing to the Gazans. This is even before October 7th, right? But and they're spending millions and billions of dollars. With all that money, they could take care of the neighborhoods that live down, just to show the hypocrisy of these people. And the Torah is very, very strict. First, take care of those close to you before you try to fix the world half a world away. That's the whole point. Why are they obsessed with us? It's because they're not taking care of their own people. So taking care of people halfway across the world. Okay, so what mitzvot are included in this seventh section? So Sefer Zeraim, we have Ilchot Shemita Yovel, the laws of Shemita and Yovel. Why did I include it here? So this is the cornerstone of the Jewish financial system. The laws of Ribit, and the laws of inheritance, and the laws of, we're going to see other laws, Yibum and Halisa, and things like that. None of them really make full sense without the context of Shemitah and Yovel. Shemitah is every 7th year. We do a Shemitah, right? The land rests. But the Shemitah itself is conditioned on the Yovel. Every 7 Shemitot, we have a Yovel. What happens in the Yovel? Anyone know? What's special about the Yovel more than the Shemitah?
Everyone is free.
Everyone goes free.
Everyone needs to return back the property.
Right. If you sold your property, your land in Eretz Israel, on the Yovel, it goes back to you. What else? If you sold yourself as a slave, even in the Shemitah, you go back. In the Yovel, all slaves go back.
Also,
Huh?
property goes to his own,
The
to
debts. The debts?
No, the money you debt.
Yeah, you lend money. All money that you lend is until the Shemitah. If you went into debt and the Shemitah came, debts are wiped out. Do these laws apply today? Why?
Because we don't have the price, right?
Right? Okay, that's very good. The Shemitah only applies deoraita at a time where the Yovel applies. The Yovel only applies once we have our land and it's divided but for the tribes. However, Hachamim made a gezerah that it applies anyways. The Shemitah applies anyways derabbanan. So we don't have the obligations of the Shemitah deoraita, but we do have to continue preserving the Shemitah derabbanan, so we don't forget the laws of Shemitah. And because it's derabbanan, there's all sorts of takanot that they do, which could be a little bit more lenient. But if we really want to understand all these laws, we're going to go a little bit and understand how the Yovel works. All right, so let's first move on. Besides that, we have Sefer Kinyan, property laws, Hilchot Mechira. There's 5 mitzvot in Hilchot Mechira. Hilchot Mechira is selling property. Zchia Matana is receiving gifts. There's certain laws regarding that. Hilchot Shechenim, neighbors, 2 people have adjacent properties, one next to another. How do you make boundaries between them? How do you behave as a good neighbor? Hilchot Sheluchin v'Shutafin. Sheluchin v'Shutafin is messengers, and you hire someone as a messenger, someone does business on your behalf, or Shutafin is you make a corporation with someone. And Sefer Mishpatim, in the book of legal disputes, Hilchot Sechirut, is hiring someone to do work for you. Hilchot She'ela Upikadon, borrowing and depositing things. Hilchot Malveh Veloveh, the laws regarding loans and debts. Hilchot to'en v'nit'an. To'en v'nit'an is if you sue someone, you have a certain claim against him and his counterclaims. Right, that's to'en v'nit'an. And hilchot nahalot, which is what we're going to look into more deeply here. Is nahalot is what we said is inheritance. Why is it a different word here? What is the nahala? Anyone know what a nahala is? The inheritance laws are specified in Ilchot Nahalot. Ilchot Nahalot literally means plots. What plots? Land. Exactly. Real estate.
Oh,
What?
the name of Naklao.
It could be. It could be that it has to do with that from the word Nahala. So, Ilchot Nahalot only has one mitzvah out of the 52 mitzvot that we just listed here, but we're going to take a little bit of a deeper look into them. All right, before that, let's look quickly at a few mitzvot in Chol Shemita and Yovel. Mitzvot Aseh, right? Kufla Mendaled 134 to 151. Right, הצטוונו להפקיר כל מה שתצמח הארץ בשנת השמיטה. On the 7th year is the Shemitah. We have a mitzvah to להפקיר is meaning I have no claim to this. It's open for anybody. The next mitzvah הוא שציוונו לשבות מעבודת הארץ בשנה השביעית. On the 7th year, the Shemitah, we need to abstain from any work of the tilling the land or any work of the land in the field. 136, הוא שציוונו לקדש שנת ה-50. We need to sanctify the 50th year. כלומר, לבטל העבודה בה כמו השמיטה. Same way that on the 49th year or every 7th year we have a Shemitah and we don't abstain from all work of the land, so too on the 50th year we have to do the same. והוא אומרו יתעלה, this is what it says in the Torah, וקידשתם את שנת ה-50 שנה. You have to sanctify the 50th year. וזה היובל, and this Jubilee year, אינו נוהג אלא בארץ. It only applies in Eretz Israel. ובתנאי, and on the condition, שיהיה כל שבט ושבט יושב במקומו. Where every tribe has its allocated portion, and it's settling on its portion. כלומר, יושב בחלקו, ובארץ ישראל, ולא יהיו מעורבים זה בזה. That every tribe has his portion in Eretz Israel, and they're not mixed up. Like in one city, you have someone from Yisachar next to Reuven, next to Shimon, right? Meaning over here you have one shevet, over here you have another shevet, over here another shevet, over here another shevet, and all that the whole land is mixed with all the shevetim. Only then can you actually have the Yovel. הוא שציוונו לתקוע בשופר בעשרה מתשרי משנה זו. On the 10th of Tishrei, what holiday is that? What falls on the 10th of Tishrei? Yom Kippur. On Yom Kippur, Motzei Kippur, right? We blow the shofar. Really, that mitzvah is to blow the shofar at the end of Kippur, Motzei Kippur of the 50th year, in order to let everyone know that now the Yovel is taking effect and all the slaves are freed, they go home, all the lands go back to their original owners. 138, קל"ח, שציוונו לשוב הקרקעות כולם בשנה הזאת לאדוניהם, that all the lands, property should go back to their original owners. קל"ט, ושציוונו שיהיה פדיון הקרקעות הנמכרים תוך חומת המדינה עד תום שנה לבד. There is what we mentioned, land going back to its original owners. That's all the agricultural lands. We even call it ancestral lands. However, there is something called Bet Ir Homa. A property within a walled city has a different law, which if you sell your house, your apartment, that's within one of these walled cities, It doesn't go back to the original owner. You have 1 year to buy back the property. What this actually, if you think of it in modern terms, basically there's like a freeze on real estate prices for a year, so they don't just jump. Think about it, if real estate prices jump, the person who sold the land can buy it back at the price that he bought it at. So this kind of makes real estate prices, if they go up gradually, and they can't have these extreme jumps. Now, what qualifies as a Beit Ir Homa? It's actually very interesting. You have a Hatzer. A Hatzer is a yard, right? With one, two, let's say 3 houses, all with a Hatzer, right? If you have, sorry, the minimum is you have 2 houses per Hatzer, 3 Hatzerot, 2 houses per Hatzer, right? This now qualify, and they're all surrounded by a wall that qualifies as a Beit Ir Homa. It means a walled city property, an apartment in a walled city. What would qualify as that today, in my opinion?
Anyone on the city?
Huh?
Anyone who lives in.
Oh, the old city is in Ir Homa. But if you want to think of it modern, because right now we laid it out horizontally. But think about it vertically.
Oh, building.
A building, an apartment building, every floor, if every floor has at least 2 apartments, the communal area between the apartments is a Hatzer Meshutaf. An apartment building that's surrounded with a gate and a wall could qualify as a Beit Ir Homa. So if you have large plots of land, agricultural land, that all goes back in the Yovel, right? It doesn't mean that places like Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, the big cities that have apartment buildings, you could still have a regular real estate market over there. But someone sells their apartment, they can buy it back at the original sale price within a year of the sale. So it still has some sort of we call it pikuach over the prices of the real estate. Understood? Supervision, meaning it's controlled. It doesn't go out of control.
What's makes it stable because every 7 years someone is able to buy it at the same price.
Within the same year. You sold me an apartment. I have now. You have 12 months to buy it back from me. If real estate prices jump up, that doesn't matter to you.
Okay.
If real estate prices jump up, I can sell it on to Ovadia at the market price, right? But you can buy it back at the original price.
But you need to sell it to that one person or to a better buyer.
No, the person who sold it. You own the property, you sold it to someone else.
After 1 year.
Within 1 year,
Within 1 year.
you have up to 12 months to buy it back at the price that you sold it.
Okay. Yeah, it's a way of stabilizing prices.
But do they have the original owner have the priority over the other buyers?
He's the only one that could buy it back at that price.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nobody
but
else
if
could.
they say that I will pay you double.
No,
Yeah.
no, he could buy it back. He has a year to buy it back.
Within that year.
If
you sell it to
if
anyone.
within 1 year, let's say he sold it to me and I sold it to someone else, he can buy it back. It's his.
Oh, I see.
So during those.
Within 1 year.
That year, you cannot sell to someone else.
You could sell, but then you'll have to buy it back at the price that you bought it because he's going to buy it back.
And you cannot refuse if you want to buy.
No,
You have to.
you have to sell it back.
Well, it does bring like a sense of randomness to the
Hmm?
randomness to a
So if there's this random, if real estate prices are going crazy, it can't really go crazy because you can't sell it. If you sell it at double the price, you may need to sell it back. Meaning you'll buy it back so that you can sell it back to the person within 1 year again. After that, that's it. It's his. And it's his forever until he sells it.
And it kind of removes the incentive from people to gather and start
I don't know.
manipulation and
I don't know.
speculation a little bit.
I don't know. I have to think. I don't know if it'll bring down the incentive to accumulate lots of buildings and
But then what's the-
But this is the Rabbanan.
no. This is the Oraita, but it doesn't apply yet. It only applies
But this is
when we have the full land and it's every tribe is sitting in its plots.
And what's the real motive for this? Like it's just like a whole.
What's the motive? We can only speculate. I think it's better control over real estate market.
It's like rent control.
So, but it's like 1 year though. So it's like a light rent control. But that's just speculation. You have a better idea of what's the purpose of this? Brainstorm away. 2 more mitzvot we're going to look at. Yibum v'chalisa, which isn't actually, it didn't even include it. You want to ask something?
No, I say only the this is for 1 year, it's only this inside, right? It's not outside the lands. The lands is gonna be back in every 7 years.
So this isn't talking about plots of land, this is talking about apartments. Yibum v'chalisa, who knows what yibum and chalisa is?
It's like if someone is married and don't have a child, then the wife is supposed to marry the brother, or then the brother gives like a exemption.
Right.
Yeah.
What's okay, so yibum is like Ovadia said, someone passes away without any children. His wife, because he has no descendants, then that's like the end of his line. So the wife of the person that passed away should get married to one of his brothers, if possible. If not possible, then they need to do a ritual called halisa, where it's like she takes off his shoe and spits not in his face but in front of him.
That's the loudest let me remember the word that this is the loud when you get the choose, take the choose out, no? And he don't want to be married, we don't want to make a descendant with his brother.
Right, because he doesn't want to make a name for his brother.
They choose out, right?
Right. So, but what's preferable today? There is no yibum. Nobody does yibum, but it's a mitzvah aseh d'oraita. Says hu shetzivanu liot hayabam nose eshet achiv kshemet lo velo hiniach zera. A person has a mitzvah to marry his brother's or his deceased brother's wife if he had no children. V'omro yit'aleh yibama yavo aleh. All right, and then there's the next mitzvah, is the mitzvah of halisa, hu shetzivanu liot hayibama chonetzet libama im lo yisa'ena, that he should do halisa if he's not going to marry her. Right, this is what everyone does today. However, it says mitzvat yibum kodemet le mitzvat halisa. Really, there should be preference to do yibum and not halisa unless you can. For instance, if you're already married to your brother's wife's sister, you can't now marry your brother's wife because you'll have 2 sisters. You can't do that, right? So then you have to do halisa. There's other problems with that too, but there are situations where the brother can't marry his deceased brother's wife, and then he has to do halisa. But really, priority should be to the mitzvah of yibum over halisa. Today, nobody does yibum, right? And in modern mind, it doesn't really make sense. When does it make sense? Think back to Nahalot. Land is divided to tribes. Your brother has his plot. He has no descendants. Now his wife is going to inherit it, and she might marry into a different tribe. And then that plot's going to move to that tribe permanently.
That's
So why is it better to do Yibum? Is because it'll keep the tribe's land intact.
That's what's happened with the Selosephat.
We're going to get to that. We're going to get to that.
And the Oraita, because remember when Yehuda, two sons, they don't want to come to marry with his wife.
Right, okay.
So he's
Yeah.
dead, one and the other one.
Right, so we see already Yibum was a very, very old custom, way before Matan Torah. They were practicing Yibum. Right? And it really doesn't make sense in our modern society eyes, but once we go back to having nahalot and portions and inheriting land, all of a sudden these things, they look very, very different. The next mitzvah she'oranu b'dinei nahalot is inheritance laws. V'hu omro yitaleh ish ki yamut uven en lo, a person who passes away and has no son, right? Then what? Then it goes to the daughter. This is where the benot zelofchad come in, right? By the way, this law was because of benot zelofchad. מכלל דין זה בלא ספק היות הבכור יורש פי שניים. Part of the reasoning for this part of the details of this mitzvah is that the firstborn inherit double portion. Okay? וזה משפט ממשפטי הירושות. All right. And the details of this are in Baba Batra. All right, so let's look at Hilchot Nahalot a little bit. Hilchot Nahalot, Seder Nahalot Kachu. This is the order in inheritance. Mishemet Yirashuhu Banav. Someone who passes away, who gets his inheritance? His sons. Banav Vehem Kudmim Lakol. They take precedence over everybody. Vazicharim Kudmim Linkevot. And the males receive over the females, meaning if he has sons and daughters, only the males inherit. If he doesn't have any sons and he has daughters, then the daughters inherit. In any event, the female doesn't receive any inheritance as long as there's a male to inherit. These are very, very don't sit well in the modern way of thinking. Why? But what does it come to solve this problem?
For when the part is for each one, they know with the other one, it's gonna be equal for everyone, so not.
What's going to happen if both the males and the females inherit?
It's gonna incentivize,
The male will inherit. His descendants will keep getting parts of his plot, right? Right? It'll like one generation after another. The daughter will inherit, right? She'll get married to some other tribe, and that's it. The plot's gone. It's no longer in Shevet Yehuda. It's no longer in Shevet Binyamin. It's gone. This way, it always stays within the Shevet.
So what about the story of the $5?
We're gonna get to the story of the $5. Let's go to that now. Sefer B'Midbar. Vaydaber Adonai Moshe lemor. We're in Parashat Pinachas. The Sheni of Parashat Pinachas details all the families. How many families are within each tribe? Who are the heads of the families? And then he says, La'ele techalek ha'ares benahala b'mispar shemot. To these people will you divide up the land. So all the heads of the families, right? These are the heads of the families. We're going to have one petek for each with the name of the head of the family. We're going to put it in a jar, and we're going to do a Goral. Let's see, the Galil, who gets the Galil? This family gets the Galil. Or, sorry, first, this tribe gets the Galil, and within the Galil, who gets the northern part, the eastern part? Then they'll draw the names of the family. Right? לאלה תחלק הארץ במספר שמות, לרב תרבה נחלתו, ולמעט תמעיט נחלתו. To the larger families and larger tribes, you give them a larger portion, and the smaller tribes and smaller families, you give them a smaller portion. איש לפי פקודיו יותן נחלתו. Everyone in accordance to this census that we just took in the previous aliyah, they will receive their nahala. Ach begoran yichalek et haaretz, but it will be done by drawing from a lottery. Lishmot matot avotam yinchalu. Al pi hagoral techalek nachalato ben rav limat. And according to the goral, you should divide up the country, right, between the many and the few. Vatikravna benot Selofhad, and then the daughters of Selofhad come forward. Ben Hefer, Ben Gilad, Ben Machir, Ben Menashe, they're from the tribe of Menashe, the family of Hefer ben Gilad, right? So Hefer ben Gilad, Ben Machir, Ben Menashe, he had, there were a few brothers there, one of them was named Selofhad, Nemishpechot Menashe ben Yosef, Ve'ele Shemot benotav, and these are the names of his daughters, Machla, Noah, Hogla, Milka, and Tirsa, he had 5 daughters. ותעמודנה לפני משה, and they came and they stood before משה, ולפני אלעזר הכהן, ולפני נשיאים מכל העדה, and they said, אבינו מת במדבר, it says, our father passed away in the desert, והוא לא היה בתוך העדה, and he didn't take part of Korach's rebellion. There's no reason to wipe him out. He died from his own sins, from his own, he died of old age. ובנים לא היו לו, and he has no sons. למה יגרע שם אבינו מתוך משפחתו? Why should the name of our father Selofhad now be removed from Israel? Because he doesn't exist anymore, because he passed away before we divided up the land. כי אין לו בן, because he has no son. תננו אחוזה בתוך אחי אבינו. Give us a portion, a piece of land, within the plots of our uncles. Vayakrev Moshe mishpatan lifnei others. Moshe says, this is a good question. What do? I'm going to go consult with God. Vayomer Adonai Moshe lemor. Ken benot Selofhad doverot. He says, yes, the daughters of Selofhad, they speak true. נתון תיתן להם אחוזת נחלה בתוך אחי אביהם, right, give them a portion among their uncles, ועברת את נחלת אביהן להן, and you should pass their fathers, what was destined for their father, should become their portion. They could divide it by 5, they each get a 5th of their father's portion.
This come with condition, no?
Not yet.
This come with that.
Later, that's later. That's later. ולבני ישראל תדבר לאמור, and to the children of Israel, איש כי ימות, if a person passes away, ובן אין לו, and he has no son, ועברתם מנחלתו לביתו, you should pass his inheritance to his daughter, ואם אין לו בת, if he has no daughter, נתתם מנחלתו לאחיו, then it should pass to his brothers, the uncles, ואם אין לו אחים, and if he has no brothers, ונתתם מנחלתו לאחי אביו, then you should pass it to the brothers of the father. You go back a generation. ואם אין אחים לאביו, ונתתם נחלתו לשארו הקרוב אליו, then you should give it to the closest blood relationship that you have, וירש אותה, right, and he shall inherit it, והייתה לבני ישראל לחוקת משפט כאשר ציווה אדוני את משה. And this is a constitutional law to the children of Israel, and therefore you can't make any conditions going against this inheritance line. All right. So if we go back to Ilchot Nachalot, look at the end of Ilchot Nachalot, right before the Sefer Bamidbar. right? It defines the line. Lo haya av kayam. If the father doesn't live anymore, then you look at the father's siblings, right? לא נמצאו אחים לאביו, לא הם ולא זרען, תחזור הירושה לאבי אבי האב. Right? If the father didn't have any brothers and is alive, then what do? You go to the grandfather or the great grandfather and you find someone down the line. How far do you go? ועל הדרך הזאת נחלה מממשכת והולכת עד ראובן. And this goes all the way back to Reuven, the son of Yaakov, meaning first you go back to your father, to his grandfather, to his great grandfather. If you need to go back to Yehuda, the head of the tribe, and if not, you go all the way back to Reuven. But the idea here in all this Nahalot is what? Is to keep the plots within the boundaries of your Matev, your Shevet, of your tribe. But now, Shevet Menashe, they have this concern. So wait a minute. This section over here, right, is Tzelofchad section. It's now divided to 5 daughters of Tzelofchad. They're gonna go.
That's the Naphtali kid?
Huh?
It's the Naphtali, right?
No, I think it was Menashe ben Yosef. Right? These are 5 plots. They're a big section of Menashe's portion. And one's gonna marry into Dan, and one's gonna marry into Yehuda, and like all this area is now going to be seeded from the Shevet of Menashe. And I said, we don't want to lose our portion. We don't want you to now take a huge portion of our Shevet and lose it, wipe it out. So what do? ויקרבו ראשי האבות למשפחת בני גלעד. So the heads of the Shevet of Menashe, they came to Moshe, וידברו לפני משה ולפני הנשיאים, ראשי האבות, and they said, אדוני ציווה אדוני לתת את הארץ בנחלה בגורל לבני ישראל. Says, you commanded that we divide the land up with a raffle for the whole nation. Badoni suva badonai, and you were also commanded לתת את נחלת צלופחד אחינו, to give our brother Tzelofchad's portion to his daughters, לבנותיו. והיו לאחד משבטי בני ישראל לנשים, and now they're going to go and marry off to any one of the other tribes, ונגרעה נחלתן מנחלת אבותינו, and their plot is going to be reduced from our tribe. ונוסף על נחלת המטה אשר תהיינה להם. And now this plot, right, if Mahla marries into Yehuda, this plot will be Shevet Yehuda and no longer part of Menashe. ונוסף על ומגורל נחלתנו ייגרע, and it's going to be, okay, ואם יהיה היובל לבני ישראל, and then when the Jubilee comes to Bnei Israel, it's not like if I sold, right? If Mahla would sell her property to someone else from anywhere in the country, okay, so then the Yovel comes, the Jubilee comes, and it goes back to Menashe. But if she marries into another Shevet, it'll never go back because it's hers. ונוספה נחלתן לנחלת המטה אשר תהיינה להם. All right, וזה דבר סביר לבנות צלופחד לאמור, לטוב בעיניהם תהיינה לנשים. All right, so God says the daughters of Tzelofchad can marry whoever they want, אך למשפחת מטה אביהם תהיינה לנשים. However, they can only marry to anyone they like within their tribe. Why? So that they don't lose their plots for the entire tribe. ולא תיסוב נחלה לבני ישראל ממטה אל מטה. And a plot of land should not be transferred this way indefinitely from one tribe to another. כי איש בנחלת מטה אבותיו ידבקו בני ישראל. וכל בת And now this was the prescription for the daughters of Silofhad. Silofhad and his daughters need to marry anyone they like within their tribe. And now this is a general law. V'chol bat yoreshet nachala, and any daughter who inherits a plot of land, mimatot b'nei Yisrael, from any of the Shvatim, le'echad mimishpachat matei avia teyeh le'isha. She can only marry within her tribe. למען ירשו בני ישראל נחלת אבותיו ולא תיסוב נחלה ממטה למטה אחר. This way the plots don't transfer indefinitely from one tribe to another. How does that sound? Make sense? By the way,
It does.
this is a mitzvat aseh. It's not listed in the 613 mitzvot. Look at the difference. Before, when the daughters of Tzilofhad came, they said to Moshe, this is our situation. And then Moshe went to God, and God prescribed a mitzvah that says, "V'hayeta livnei Yisrael lechukat mishpat." This is going to be a constitutional law, and you can't ever change it. But now, it doesn't say that. It says this is God's instruction. And he says, and I'm prescribing a mitzvah, that if a woman inherits her father's nahala, that she has to marry only within her tribe. But he didn't say that this is now being a constitutional law. This was a very temporary law. It says it's true, there was this issue specifically with the Benot Tzilofhad, and God prescribed a certain remedy for this situation. And he didn't just prescribe it for Benot Tzilofhad, he prescribed it in general. He made a general rule. However, this rule, this law, was only in effect until Yehoshua, 14 years later, divided the land. And this isn't one of the Taryag mitzvot. So from then on, if a woman receives a nahala, right, someone passes away, he has no sons, he only has a daughter. The daughter receives that plot of land. Let's say here, she receives this plot of land. She doesn't have to marry only within her tribe, and this plot of land can potentially be transferred to another tribe if she marries, because she can marry anyone she wants. So God prescribed a law here that we call Dor HaMidbar. Remember, we're talking about the 14 rules of what can be considered one of the Taryag mitzvot. One of them that needs to be mitzvah shenoheget lidorot. It needs to be a mitzvah that's effect is forever, for an eternal mitzvah. Not like how do you camp in the Mishkan, not like things that had to do specific to when they were in the desert, like how much man you collect on Friday, right? That was a mitzvah that they got, but it's not part of the Taryag mitzvot. This mitzvah over here, that if a woman inherits her father's plot, she can only marry within her tribe. That is not a mitzvah shenoheget lidorot. Lidorot, a woman can marry whoever she wants. And if someone passes away, and he only has a daughter, she gets it, she can marry whoever she wants. If that plot then moves to another tribe, it moves to another tribe. If a person passes away and he has no sons or daughters, right? Then preference is given to one of his brothers to marry that wife, so that they can keep the plots within the tribe. If not, and they do yibum, they do halisa, she can marry whoever she wants. But all these weird, bizarre, ancient laws, once you understand how the structure of the nahalot work, all of a sudden they take on a whole different sense. So that's why I think Hilchot Nahalot, Yibum and Halisa, all need to be part of how do you call it? Part of this one category regarding the Shemita and Yovel, because it all has to do with the financial system of the Torah and real estate law.
Goes from prescriptive to like perush, right?
Perush.
It becomes like prescriptive. It was prescriptive that one time.
The question is going to be what happens now? Right now we have no, how do you call it? We have no
Tribes.
tribes. We're going to need to eventually divide the land up to tribes.
Most people don't even own land, so that's probably another reason why Hebrew isn't a big issue, because it's like, it was a big issue when people were landowners. And they
Yeah,
wanted to keep-
that's probably why now they prefer Halisa. Right? For the past 2,000 years, well, I don't know the entire 2,000, past, I don't know, a few hundred years at least, they've really only really practiced Halisa. But once we go back to dividing up the land between all of us, and we each have our portion, then Yibum is going to be a much bigger deal.
But not necessarily, right? Doesn't need to happen like that.
You could do Halisa,
But if
but it's preference. There's preference to do Yibum. By the way, the halacha refers to Yibum as something very special. It says, it was like, it kind of uses terminology of like a match made in heaven. It's like you got this wife, even if you didn't want it, God granted it to you. Right? Like a match made in heaven. Like Zukam min hashamayim. He was awarded it by heaven. As long as there's no halachic reason to prevent it, or the age gap between the two isn't extreme, then it's preferable to do Yibum over Halisa. Any questions? Just want to say the Shemita and the Yovel, and is part of. These are part of the covenant that these are. If you look in Parashat Mishpatim, you have the Shemita and Yovel. If you look at Behar Bechukotai, you have the Shemita and the Shalom Aleichem. I'm just finishing up. You have the Shemita and Yovel there as a model of the covenant or breaking the covenant on the other hand. I'm going to send you out to exile if you don't keep these laws. And then the land is going to demand its Shabbatot. It's Shemitot and the Yovlot. Right? So this is like the core of the covenant. So a lot of these laws sometimes seem kind of like disconnected from our modern reality because we don't have that way of thinking as if we are in our full Geulah state with the land divided up to the tribes, right? But this is also one of the essential laws for really guaranteeing our freedom, our financial freedom as a nation. And remember when we studied the story of Naboth and Ahab, right? He refused to sell his land. Says, God forbid should I sell my ancestral home, to the king. Says this is how we maintain our freedom, and the king is just the administrator of the nation, and not like any other country where the king is the landlord and he divides the land as he sees fit to his officers. Says no, here everybody just has their land. The king doesn't have any special land that's his, except for what he inherited. He's just the administrator of the nation.
So I'm assuming they weren't paying taxes.
There are taxes. I mean, taxes is kind of different in this kind of, you could pay. It's like you're not paying it from the land, but taxes could also be a physical tax, meaning.
What was it attached to land tax? Because the next question would be like, if ownership, you divide it by private ownership to like a king's ownership, and it's supposed to be divided, but then the king could say, oh, we need your taxes, or else we're gonna take back your land, and he like manipulates the system.
No, he can't do that. He can't, he has no, what he could do, or what any tribe could do, is they can conquer new land
Right,
and have that land as part of their territory. And the king could do that too. He gets half of that land, and the rest of the nation gets the other half. And over here, you can gift it to whoever you
so
want.
there were no like ideas about like eminent domain or something, like the government.
There is eminent domain, but it's for national infrastructure. But it's not like I'm now taking half of your Nahala to build a resort on it or something
Right.
for me. All right, Rav Yisrael is here, so we're gonna stop.